Steam.
Ooh.
Steam. Instead of having somebody go to a voting booth and casting a vote, why not try and collect everyone's views?
Have you been a member of a political party?
The business of progressives is to go on making mistakes. The business of conservatives is to prevent mistakes from being corrected.
Welcome to Politically Connected, a podcast on everything politics and governance in Kenya and Africa. Here we unpack the complexities of people, policy, and power. I'm your host, Diana Ngao,
AKA Madam Speaker, and I am Chaka,
AKA the Bishop. Welcome back to the regular scheduling of our discussion of Politically Connected. Today's episode, we will unpack our previous explainer that we've done previously on political parties, because it is relevant as it was then, it is now. Mm-hmm. So before even we begin, we have an elephant in the room. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's a bigger elephant that I want to ask my co-host.
The bigger
here.
Elephant is me.
No. No. The biggest thing I want to ask, have you been a member of a political party?
I was, without my consent, registered to a political party, which I only got to discover when I was told to bonyeza a USSD code to find out if you are registered. So, to my surprise, I was like, sikuitwa hii mkutano, sikujisajilisha. So I quickly jiuzulud and jumped onto another party. Na wewe?
Mbona utaki kuambia ni party gani? Hii episode ni ya chama. Chama lazima museme. Speak proudly of your first alliance with your first political party.
So I got to discover that I was a member of ANC. Yeah, Amani National Congress. And I found it interesting because it seems there was a formula to forcibly registering people to these parties.
Yeah.
And because I found it quite coincidental that I was registered to a party from a section of the country where people like tea.
And you like tea. They knew this about you.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, interesting. Even me, the first political party I was registered in was... which one came before Jubilee? TNA. Yes, TNA. The first political party I was registered in was TNA. And... at that time now, because how I found out is the way when there was this whole buzz online, like people have been registered in political parties, then there was that USSD, and I went and I'm like, TNA? And I find it interesting. I thought I was saying that it was a formula because it seemed like based on where you travel most, the region you travel most to is where you are registered. So yeah, I was a member of TNA, but I resigned. I used the USSD code to resign. Yeah.
Did you register onto another one?
Of course. How could I be politically connected without being part of a political party?
Well, you could be an independent.
Well, maybe that's where we're moving to, but I did register to another party, but years later is when, because at that time when TNA, when I was forcefully registered under TNA, I didn't know, to me it hadn't really sunk what is the purpose of a political party. To me it just seemed like just this vehicle that comes every 5 years and people are told to pick one and the direction it's going. It didn't really sink. Then later, and I think for me later was more of 2017 is when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, like for meaningful change to happen in our political landscape, the vehicle is political parties.
Why?
Because political parties under the 2010 Constitution are supposed to be these ideological vehicles.
Supposed to be.
Or rather, the fine print in the Political Parties Act is that the parties are meant to have ideologies. So when I learned of that, I didn't learn of the act, but when I researched and I heard that, kumbe political parties actually have an ideological stand. There are some that are Democrats. Majority of them are supposed to be democratic, even in their names. Democrats, others are socialists, others are, and then that's when I realized, I'm like, for the kind of change, because at that time, I remember me personally, I was just tired of the tribal politics that was there. I was like, who said that just because I come from a certain region, I cannot vote for this other person? And then I was just thinking, I'm like, how come we can't be like the US? Then the US for me was not now, not anymore. Then, just two political parties with an ideological stand. There are some that are liberal and there are others that are conservative. So in my research, then I uncovered that, that's the whole point of political parties in Kenya. It's just that what is in the fine print is not what is practiced. So I decided to join and make my change within the political parties. Yeah.
Has there been any significant change?
Well, I was a party official. I rose up to be a party official in that political party. But unfortunately, when I became a public officer, I had to resign. Yeah, I had to resign.
It's interesting you mentioned the American system and the two parties. I was looking at some writings on political parties, and I came across something quite interesting about conservatives and progressives. And it's by one of my favorite writers, G.K. Chesterton, thinker and writer. And he said, the business of progressives is to go on making mistakes. The business of conservatives is to prevent mistakes from being corrected.
Mistakes from being corrected?
Yes.
Interesting.
And I think, there was that episode, a few episodes back, where we talked about this framework we were toying with about there is the thing and what it's supposed to do. There's what people says it does, and then there's how it's actually used and what it actually does.
Yeah.
And you see, if you were to ask most people in the country about political party ideologies, it still gravitates towards personalities or regions, mtu yetu politics.
Yeah.
And I think part of what we've been trying to do with this series of episodes, because it started with a comment a few episodes back, and then we said, let's explore this further. And we're still going to keep exploring it, hopefully invite some people to come and discuss it. And if you ask most people about political party ideology, they can't really tell you what their party... They can give you a slogan that is associated with the party, but unpack it and compare the policies with that of another party.
Yeah.
They don't even want to associate with that other party, let alone consider what is being proposed policy-wise. And in the last few episodes, trying to look at the history of parties, how far we've come, what happened at different stages, the structures and the legal instruments, the laws, constitutionalism. I found a speech which really I felt encapsulated quite a bit. And I want to share or read excerpts from it.
Hey.
I'll keep it brief. But I think this statesman was trying to speak to what a political party should be. And by speaking about what it should be, it means you're highlighting what it shouldn't be or what there isn't and what is lacking in our society. And I thought it would be a nice way to, consider the issues very quickly. So it says, this party welcomes every Kenyan, no matter where in the Republic they call home. Our accord as a party will grow to embrace the whole country, and standing as one, we should build our nation. This is a lesson we have learned from our past. We understand that the unity of our fathers and mothers shared was lost because we succumbed to personality cults and failed to protect internal democracy in our parties. This party will not make the same mistakes as the parties that came before us. Every shade of opinion will have its say in this party, and every member will receive a fair hearing. We will embrace internal party democracy and urge other political parties to do the same. The goal is for Kenyans to have genuine political choices where anyone can feel at home regardless of their name, skin color, place of worship, gender, or whether they are disabled.
Nani huyu?
We want all Kenyans to say that this party is their home. I want to reiterate that this party, which we launched today, is not about individuals. It is about a general statement of change. It embodies the will of Kenyan people who are deeply tired of political parties that are nothing more than special purpose vehicles to elect selfish leaders or protect tribal interests at the expense of the national good. This party, your party, is about taking the path that has been less trodden. It is about being custodians of our country's long-term development agenda. We embrace our rich Pan-African heritage, our glorious and painful history as Africans. We remember the days when Kenya's voice was transmitted from Cairo, supporting freedom fighters in their struggle. We are uplifted by the memory of Mwalimu Nyerere, who was reluctant to allow Tanzania's independence to come before Kenya's freedom. We look up to giants such as Kwame Nkrumah and Patrice Lumumba, who stood tall, for a time carried the continent's hopes on their broad shoulders. We follow in the footsteps, believing that African can achieve anything to which he sets his mind.
Hawezi tuacha hivyo. Who said that?
Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
I thought so. This is when they were launching Jubilee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was between Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto when he was launching UDA. It rang the same. It kind of had the same tune. Yeah.
But it says something. I'm sure by the mention of those names, different people feel different things. Hata labda wamerab Kenya wamesikia. But I found it very powerful, and I think it speaks to the issues we're contending with and grappling with about the thing that's the political parties. What it should be is what he's talking about.
And
what it is. Yeah.
What it's actually used for.
What it's actually used for. He's talked about personality cults. He's talked about tribal enclaves. He's talked about selfish leaders. He's talked about regionalism and the like. He's talked about selfish interests.
When was this speech written?
This was just before his election for the second term, 2017, 2016.
Interesting. I don't know why it felt like interesting. To be honest, when you first read it, you was like, wow, who's this great man who has this grand vision for Kenya? It kind of reads like, Martin Luther's speech, I have a dream. It felt that chilling. But then when you see, I'm sure if I had it then, I'd be like, yes, sign me up to that party. But when you look at it in retrospect and what has happened in our political space, or in rather with all the political parties, you wonder that how can you have this, where are we failing in the implementation? Because the vision is there, the policies are there. but the implementation in terms of now when people are leading these political parties, when members are being recruited into these political parties, the nominations for party seats, it's just...
And the tragic irony for Jubilee, which was being launched at the time, after merger of TNA,
and
URP, and many other, the Mbas Party and many others. Tragic irony is the recent legal battles you see in that same party.
Yeah.
And it is a tragic irony because this party that is supposed to allow for different views and opinions, that was the vision. This party that is not supposed to be about selfish interests.
Yeah.
And you see the challenges that are there. So this party that is not supposed to be regional, and now people unfortunately are talking about it as a central Kenya party. So, and these are the tensions, part of why I was provocatively asking a few episodes ago, we just become independent. What are we doing?
With political parties?
It's one thing to talk about political parties and what they espouse and representative democracy and pluralism and all the political philosophy surrounding political parties. But when you look at what is there, are we doing the thing that is supposed to be done? Might as well then do away with it, or let's have an honest conversation about it.
I agree. I think I'm leaning on the point of let's have an honest conversation, because I can't see a democracy without political parties, because how I see, or rather my experience in political parties, is that they really shape what churns out of them. It's either they shape them for good or they shape them for better. But either way, once you enter the political party, there's some panel beating that is done to you. It can panel beat you to be a Range Rover, or it can panel beat you to be something else that really doesn't work. I'm just saying that I feel like we need to have an honest conversation. And the reason political parties fail is because even the members themselves are not educated or empowered enough with this information to understand what is the purpose of this formation. So you have members who join political parties just because there's a candidate. It's great. Like a candidate says that they want to run for, let's say I want to run for governor of Nairobi or MP of Westlands constituency, let's say MP. So I will come to a certain party and register as many members to that political party to ensure me votes. I don't disagree with that. My issue is that now once these people enter the political party, including me as the aspirant, there should be some level of training, some level of information that ensures that even as they stand on podiums talking as an aspirant from this party, let's say the party is called Jembe, since we have wheelbarrow, Jembe, and Jembe party stands for social democratic gain. So that means we're more focused on, we're not capitalist driven. So that this person, when they're speaking on these podiums, they know exactly what the party stands for. But that really is not what is practiced.
And it's not even just having those issues when going into elections. Even in the 5-year period between elections, it is those policy positions that should inform thinking behind public participation in challenging policies and legislation. To say that what is being proposed here on the floor of Parliament, or this instrument that has been adopted by a minister, is inconsistent with the principles that we stand for.
That's true.
So it's supposed to be not just relevant in the election year.
That's true.
It's supposed to be even more relevant
during the tenure of that government.
Exactly. Because these competing ideas are really about the choices that impact our lives. When you're talking about, for instance, having a tax policy, right? What's this political party position on the principles of taxation.
Yeah.
When you're talking about what countries Kenya should relate to and how that impacts our trade, what about what the CS Foreign Affairs has just said about our foreign policy?
Yeah.
How does that impact our trade or in relation to the African Continental Free Trade Area? So our political parties should be the vehicles through which people with common views on these issues come together and they're able to find strength in that unity, as opposed to when an individual says it is very different when you see Edwin Sifuna standing, because now you're not just seeing, you're seeing the whole force of ODM behind him. But realizing that, and you see one thing that is I find very interesting is with the last 3 episodes, as we were doing the explainer, and you see the evolution of our political parties, with every challenge that has come up to threaten democratic ideals or to challenge the proper functioning of parties or multipartyism and the like, we keep innovatively finding great solutions. But with every solution that comes, you find even more clever devils stepping into that. What do I mean by this? For instance, just a short while ago, you talked about how citizens and people who become members of political parties and don't even have the civic awareness or education to now articulate these issues from an informed place. Part of the solution for that was to fund civic education through political parties. It's part of why political parties get funding. And why, for instance, Article 98, I think, recognizes political parties as public institutions. Coming from a history of when they were
special purpose. It was special purpose
just about elections. And so now you have a situation where there's this 2023-2024 financial year. Would you believe me if I told you that there's a party that just got allocated 500 million shillings?
From political parties fund.
In one financial year. The next one was 300 and something. Another one...
Million. Oh, million.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the top one is 500 million. Per financial
our president
year.
has been talking about so many billions. I'm getting used to saying billion.
But where's the the accountable? How are these funds being used? How do we get to know how they're being used? So, the least amount that a party got was there was one that got 200,000 shillings, another one got 400,000 shillings.
It's based on their composition
and how many votes they got, how many members of parliament, and the threshold and the like. This is a chunk of our national budget. So the thinking was, if we have this funding to these parties, not only is it civic education, it also means that it's not just people with money who get to have a say in the outcome of elections. It means that we have possibly more integrity. It becomes about ideas. But the more we try and find solutions, the more the problems compound. Because you see, with the challenge that happened with Jubilee and these court battles, the control for the party was about
because of the funds. The funds that were coming into the party.
So the party was stifled. It couldn't do anything. And so you see the political play in that. So it's some of the tensions that keep compounding the problem.
But I'm starting to see that the problem, what you're saying, every level or every solution has a new devil. I'm starting to see that it's really more about the erosion of values, because the institution, institution is there. Political parties as an institution, it's been institutionalized under the 2010 Constitution. And further, even institutions that have been made for checks and balances for these political parties. There's a political party dispute tribunal. There are other also organizations like Center for Multi-Party Democracy, CMD. There are very many other organizations that work in this whole arena of political parties to ensure there's pluralism, there's training, there's civic education. However, I don't think it is the institution that is the problem. It is the people in the institutions that decide that, you know what, we are going to tamper with this for my own interest. It is a bigger problem if you look at it widely to even what we are experiencing now in our country. It is not that we don't have a constitution that says what should be done. Mm-hmm. It is because of just consistent and even further erosion of values, the values that are there in Chapter 10 of the Constitution, on national values of integrity, of accountability, of transparency. By the way, do you know political parties actually have to gazette their returns every year? Mm-hmm. And yes, they gazette, of course, we did this for training, we did this for this, but really, did they really use the funds for that? You know, there needs to be an honest conversation on political parties. And I'm even of the thought that there needs to be a cap on political parties every 5 years. Because what we see, every 5 years, new outfit. Every 5 years, new outfit. There's nothing different. So I'm like, why do we need new outfit if the principle is the same? Like, why do we need a new political party if your ideology is the same? If you say you're a democratic party, or you are founded on democratic ideals, and you are Jubilee, then now you form UDA. What is the difference? Difference ni gani?
There's, allow me to use this reference. Attorney General Emeritus Professor Githu Muigai said, or usually says, that there are as many legal opinions about the law as there are lawyers. Why do I make reference to that? I think there can be as many ideas on how society should run as there are people. And you see how we're saying with every solution you get. Now, the challenge with limiting them is you then have a situation where people are frustrated because the existing parties may not allow them to come in and share their ideas, but then they're constrained in terms of now bringing in new ideas.
How about we restrict them in terms of, if there's already a party founded on democratic ideals or social democrats or liberalism, you know, the register of political parties can direct them, I think you should merge with this one. Because political mergers are legal, and they even, most political parties in their constitutions or even have a law in how mergers and coalitions should be. That is what I'm saying. Because if you leave it open, or rather, we've lived long enough as a human race to realize that there's no new idea of how to govern ourselves. You know, it's either you're totalitarian, you're democratic, you know, there's nothing new. But in the eventuality that something new comes, then there is even a clause to petition. You can petition and have this change. But currently we cannot live in that reality where it's now an open playing field, that it's like, it's a football match. This is how I'm envisioning in my head. It's a football match, and there are players. There are meant to be maybe 7 players or 11 players in the field. And we decide, you know what? We're not going to put guardrails of the fans. So any fan can see a ball running and say, hapana, sasa ni mimi nataka kucheza kwa hii field. And we start having from...
That's how rugby started.
You know.
Challenges, again, with all this, there are tensions, because the counters and now the devils for this new levels emerge is that, on the one hand, if you say these parties should merge because they have similar ideals, you run into problems like constitutional principle of freedom of association. Yes, we may have similar ideas, but
isn't that a point of that's now the personality, that even though you have similar principles, I want to be the party leader of this party because I want to position myself for power. So it becomes more or less about what I feel like I should get. Cult of personalities. My personality does not merge with your personality, as opposed to the public good. So the public good is that you are trying to get collective minds that think alike to push for change.
In an ideal sense. And you see, for example, another problem that arises is this person who's determining that these two parties should merge, for instance,
Yeah.
you're relying on their conception of these ideas, and then we're assuming that this person is politically neutral. And brings us to another challenge that came with the independent institutions, as which the president made reference to in his State of the Nation address, and which was novel to this constitution, sort of a fifth arm of government, so to speak, or fourth or fifth arm of government, so to speak, the independent bodies and commissions. You had the institution of the office of the registrar of political parties.
Yeah.
What happened is the idea was excellent, but from the onset, one realized that this office holder was a political appointee. And so the powers that be, having appointed this person behind the scenes, yes, you go through a process. So this person then has an impact on how our parties are operating. So that's part of the challenge you then have if you're saying this person is empowered to decide these parties are merging. You're creating monsters.
No, I see that, but the challenge there, I see what you're saying. That is a challenge, but that is based on, again, the principle of not having the right people in the right positions. It has to be just like the CJ, even though, no, let me not go there. Rewind selector. I was taking us into a rabbit hole. Let me not touch the CJ. I'm just saying, like, competitive. It should be competitive and not appointed slots. And I feel like they should be, I think it's something that even the IBC is doing. It's getting political parties to choose a panel that will choose who will be the IBC commissioner. Something similar like that, somewhere where it feels like it is participatory from all stakeholders of political parties to choose one person who's going to be like their ombudsman, and that person will carry the wisdom and they will allow them to guide these political parties. Because now, let me tell you, 2027, will we have Kenya Kwanza? Will Kenya Kwanza be Kenya Kwanza? Will UDA still be UDA?
No, it will be Broadway's Mkate government. Now, you see, the thing is, and this is part of the tension we're talking about.
Yeah.
The idealism versus the reality. Because even when I say the registrar of political parties from the onset was a political appointee, no, there was a process. But in reality, when you lift the veil, you come to that conclusion. And I'll give you an example, maybe shifting away from that.
Yeah.
When now that you mentioned the CJ,
where are you taking us
let
down
me go there. But I will talk about CJ Emeritus.
Okay.
David Kenani Maraga.
Yeah.
When he did the unprecedented and nullified an election. However I felt about that decision, the one could argue was a very principled choice and a bold one. Might have plunged us into chaos, but Kenya being resilient, we emerged from it. That decision had also addressed quite a number of issues. He talked about, he even referenced the divine and scripture and the standards to which we are held, which was wonderful. But there's something key he said. He spoke to the competence of the chair of the IEBC and said that this person, that person was not competent.
How did he continue being chair?
Not only did he continue, he also continued into this last election, which has been the freest and fairest, according to an outgoing diplomat. If you check the record, the record reflects. That's what David Kenani Maraga said. Very strong opinion. So it speaks to that challenge of idealism versus reality. Because how can such a statement be made
and not be acted on?
Yeah. Maybe let's say there wasn't enough time to recruit another chair for that repeat election at that point, because you had a very short window. Was it 60 days?
Yeah.
But 5 years later,
we still have the same chair.
And we're expecting we won't have problems with the elections. Food for thought. Lama za duku duku.
Hey, I don't think we are serious as a country.